So I've got a set of 3 or 4 different images here. I'm just going to flip through them, and you can see that the camera moves between them just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to auto align based on the surroundings, and the figures are kind of silhouettes, but I'm going to combine it together so the 3 different figures are in one image. So I'm going to start by going to File and Automate, and then it's going to be auto align, and I'm actually forgetting where it is, so I'm going to do a search for it. Auto align layers, there we go. Okay, so that's going to work once we actually drop them all in one file together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my background image here and pull my other 3 images out, and I'm going to grab the move tool here, and I'll grab each of these and drag them in. Now, if I knew that my images were shot on a tripod and they would automatically align without any problems, then I could just hold down Shift and drag them over. But since my camera did shake between them, and I'm going to go back into my layers palette here, if I can find it, and I can show you. There's my original 1, 2, 3, and you can see it shook. So what I'll do is I will select all 4 layers, and I'll go back up here to the auto align layers, which is under Edit, Auto Align Layers. And I'm just going to go on auto because I think it should probably do a pretty good job. And I'll hit OK. And it'll do its little magic, which I think it did really quick there, and it aligns them. There we go. So now the surrounding background remains consistent. You can see that they're shifted ever so slightly. So there's a little bit of a white or check pattern showing in each of them. But luckily, when I combine them all together, it actually expands those together. But so the idea is that you can get all 3 of these to show. And the way I would do that normally is I'm gonna work on one layer at a time. I'm gonna start with layer 1. Well, actually, layer 1 shows everything kind of with the background. It actually works pretty well. So I don't need to really use layer 0 here is kind of the idea of this. So I'll instead go onto the layer that's above that. It's now hiding one of the figures, and I'll create a mask. And the mask is this white box with a dark circle inside of it. And I'll grab my paintbrush tool, set it to black, and I can paint over that area to make that appear. Go up to my next layer, and I'll do the same thing. I'll make a mask. I'll paint so that one on the left appears, and then I'll go ahead and I'll paint so that the one in the middle appears. There it is. All right, now, if I wanted to make any of these a ghost, what I could basically do then is take the opacity of that layer and reduce it to, say, 50%. So now it shows through 50%. I could go ahead and I could do that with all of them. And then we have 3 ghosts. The only thing that happens then is because I'm reducing the opacity on the outside here where the images don't line up, I just want to crop that to get rid of that. So assuming that there isn't much of a difference. So that is the sort of simple, quick, easy way of making first images line up so that you can mask, so that you can have one appear over the other. And I guess I should maybe go into that with a little bit more detail. Being that, you know, if you had two subjects overlapping, what you'd want to do is you'd want to go back in here, and you'd want to be much more deliberate with your masking and be very careful. So the idea would be, if you want to, let me pull the opacity up. If you wanted to make this, I don't have anything overlapping, so this is why this one doesn't exactly work as well. But what I'd want to do is I'd want to go back in with white paint and kind of just bring it in really close to the edge of my figure here. But because I'm, how do I say it the right way? because I'm not overlapping, these things don't really show. So I could erase half of a figure or something like that by painting white on it, or paint on black and it'll bring it through more. Um, but that's kind of the general figure, is that you'd really only want to trace just outside or just inside of your image to make it perfectly appear. And you have to kind of go back in with a fine detail brush to kind of get things to line up if your figures are touching. You probably have to zoom in considerably when you do that. So